and tell you.
Take the
Well, you
seat.
didn't
Take the
tell
big
He
seat.
doesn't have any business.
Oh, he doesn't?
No.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, you do have business. Mind my own business.
My pillow. When I sit in a hot seat, you gotta have a cushion. I call Public Safety Emergency Management to order at 7 o'clock. I had 3 motions on the docket this evening. From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12, of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to allow the fire department to expend approximately $8,220 in any future grant amendment from FY18 fire education grants from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts funds.
Second.
As you know, in the past, for your new councilman, this is a grant that we're very fortunate to get every year, basically, and that's due to our grant writers on the police, fire, wherever. They do a great job of obtaining these funds. There's a lot of communities throughout the state don't get them. So this grant is for education of children about fire, elderly about fire prevention, and they do a great job with it every year. So, any questions or comments on that? Yes, sir.
It's just a comment, and I think I say this every year, but these next 2 grants are 2 of the grants that I look forward to every year, just because of the impact that they do have. And you're right, it speaks to the grant writers that we have here. I don't want to really belabor the point, but the Shannon grant, as well as the SAFE grant, I mean, these are really life-changing to some of the residents here. So kudos to the grant writers, and thank you.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have them. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to allow the fire department to expend $9,500 in any future grant amendments from the Emergency Management Performance Grant.
Second.
This is also similar to the last one. We're fortunate to get them, and through the good efforts of the people on the fire department that write the grants and ask for them. These are not matching grants. These are an outright gift, so not a gift, outright grant. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to allow the police department to expend approximately $10,144 in any future grant amendments from grants awarded via the 2018 Senator Charles E. Shannon Jr. Community Safety Initiative.
Second.
Not to whip a dead horse, but they do a great job at the police department. We lost a grant writer that retired, Scott Kelo. He's brought us millions of dollars in grants during his tenure over there. And I'm sure that I don't know who the gentleman is now that's writing them, but he had a good teacher, so I would assume we're going to have the same results. And without these grants, I mean, we're talking 18, almost $30,000 in grants. Goes a long way to help. Yes, sir.
Thanks. On this one, this is really an amazing grant because the Shannon grant focuses on the youth in the community, as well as working with gang violence and really education to keep the kids away from the gangs, and it falls right in line with the POP unit, which is just fantastic.
This grant, if you look, I believe in the backup, Taunton is involved in this grant.
Right.
They're co-receiver with it, so
Yep.
it shows into department. Not only that, it shows into department. working together for the good of our kids. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Move to adjourn at 7:04.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call Public Works Committee to order at 7:04, and I just have one item this evening in my committee. First of all, good evening to everybody. On the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $22 from account 1650100-511000, Park and Forestry Salary and Wages, to account 1650100-549140, Park and Forestry Small Equipment, relative to a difference in the price of a landscape utility trailer.
Second.
Thank you. This came in just last week. The original communication was sent to the council on December 19th, 2017, and was approved by the council on January 16th, 2018. But since the trailer quote was obtained in November, the trailer that originally quoted is no longer available by the vendor, and after speaking with the vendor about the matter, they have offered a better model, a load trailer 77 by 12, 3,500 numbered utility trailer at a cost of $1,997, and the ability to obtain a larger trailer for the additional cost of $22 is a greater value for the Parks and Forestry Department and the city. We're able to get that money because of acting Forestry Superintendent Dennis Walsh, because he was holding the acting superintendent position in a non-compensated capacity for over 6 months. The funding is available. So it's $22. I don't think I've ever asked for $22 before. That's like the smallest amount we've ever had to transfer. It's pretty good. All those in, excuse me, any questions, comments? Yes, please.
Just a funny comment. When Deb Gould was explaining this to me, I said, can I just give you the $22? And she said, no, it's actually easier to do it this way than for me to make the donation and go through that process of the $22, because I thought for $22, can we negotiate it with the vendor? No. So
Aren't you always a generous?
I mean, it's just sort of silly, the $22, but it is what it is. We're spending taxpayer money, and people need to know it, but we try. It wasn't for a lack of trying to not have to come ask the council for $22, believe me.
And you're not going to get in any trouble over it either.
No, that's right.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. I would ask for an adjournment this evening at 7:07.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:07.
Bill's not here yet. Oh, no, what?
The capital improvements and city development committee is canceled tonight.
So,
Thank you, Councilor Corbis, for allowing me to go before you. I do have a guest here tonight, so I would like to call to order the Budget and Appropriations Committee to order at 7:07. I just want to give a quick update before I call the city treasurer up. I did meet with Mayor Hero and Budget Director Barry Lacasse last week to discuss the upcoming budget. It was a very productive meeting. It was great to sit down with the two of them, talk a little bit about their expectations, our expectations. I'm looking forward to the fiscal 2019 budget coming down in the next probably month and a half, 2 months. As soon as the dates are firmed up, I will have let you know what the dates are. I plan to work backwards from the 45 days from when it's presented, so we're well aware of where we're at. Again, we're going to have the opportunity to speak to the mayor, to the director of the budget administration, and the department heads. The proposed cuts are always important, but what I'm going to ask the entire council is, let's vet those while we have the people in front of us. I think that's fair. In the past, we've kind of gotten ourselves into some trouble with cutting contractual items, and, you know, I know that the mayor and Barry are very excited to have everyone coming down, so this will be our opportunity. So more to come as that comes down, but I'm really looking forward to everyone's participation. I have asked the city treasurer, Laura Gignac, to come and join us tonight. Ms. Gignac, if you don't mind joining us at the podium. Thank you. So we have three loan orders that are coming out tonight for some pretty important projects. One is the HVAC at the water department. We have some DPW equipment, some police cruisers, and some fire engine and an ambulance. All of this, for the most part, has been in the capital improvements program, so this isn't anything that should be surprising to us. But with everything else going on across the city, I thought it was important for Laura to come down and have the opportunity to introduce herself to the council, talk a little bit about the process and some of the timelines, because I know we're underneath some certain deadlines. So, thank you.
For the record, my name is Laura Gignac. I'm the Attleboro City Treasurer. Thank you for having me tonight. Jay did ask me to talk a little bit about the timeline on the loan orders that are in front of you and what we have maturing, which is coming due. We have government general obligation bond anticipation notes coming due in the amount of $12 million in May 18th. In order to refinance those were for several different reasons, and just so I can recap, and I did bring that bond for anyone who wants to take a look at it. We have Oak Hill Water Storage Tank that's coming up, the AHS feasibility study, the wastewater landfill. We have water and police and fire equipment that are maturing at this time. Some of these we are finished, and we will be going long-term on them, and some of them are not finished, so we have additional funds that we have authorized that we can spend, so we will be borrowing additional funds to complete those projects. The loan orders that are coming down, as Jay mentioned, are for fire department vehicles, police and public works, and HVAC. Some of those can be added to this bond that is maturing, which would be more cost-effective for the city to do so if we can catch that into the same bond. The timeline is very tight. We started talking about our maturing bond in December. We have a finance meeting. We talk about where the projects are at, what additional funds may be needed, are they complete, and what would that look like if we went 5 years or 10 years. So these are conversations that we start very early, and this is in December for something that's coming due in May. What happens at that point is once you authorize a loan, that loan order then goes to Steve Withers, who has to put together a package. There's multiple different things that he has to put together and give to me, which I need to submit to bond counsel. Once they receive that package, they have to go through that and they ask for additional items. So sometimes that can take several weeks of back and forth of what they're asking me to provide. A lot of times they're asking me to provide whether we own the building, say if it's for a building. Does the city own that building? Do you have any leases? We have to then submit a letter saying, no, we're not leasing out any space, the city owns that. There's a lot of different factors and things that they ask for depending on what you're borrowing. That can take a while as well. And then I need to get what we call a green light letter. Before I can borrow any money, I have to have a green light letter from bond counsel saying that, yes, you're authorized to borrow this money. Once I have that, then I can move forward. We have multiple discussions before and after to kind of determine what we want to do. And it obviously is a budgetary concern. So obviously the people involved in that are Barry Lacasse from Budget and Admin, Deb Gould, the auditor, obviously someone from our financial advising team, which is usually Lynn Foster from Unibank. And we all sit down and just kind of discuss that. The timing of these loan orders is going to be very tight. I have to have everything to bond counsel, and they give me a timeline based on what we're looking to do by March 15th. And I understand that this is due to be voted on February 20th, which gives us less than a month for me to go back and forth with them, with everything that they need in order to get this to package all together.
And you really don't have the opportunity until it passes through the entire council,
That is
correct? So it's not something you could even get the ball rolling right now if you wanted to.
No, I mean, I do anticipate what they're going to ask, so I can kind of get ready as much as possible,
Sure.
Which we've done all the pre-work for everything else that we have. It's just the new things we have to talk and find out, okay, one of those fire vehicles going to be done? When are you going to need that money? Is it going to be before June 30th? Because if it is before June 30th, we have to make sure that we have a loan authorization in place and a green light letter, because it could hit our free cash if we do not. I also need to know, am I going to make it, how much are you going to need until the next time that we go to refinance a bond, or to term on another bond, per se. And that would be May of next year. You don't want to be going out in June. Every city and town is scrambling to go out in June. So you don't want to be part of that market.
Of course. Great. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful explanation. I think it helps to really kind of encapsulate everything that we're looking to do. So does anyone have any questions for Treasurer Gignac? Council Hall.
Yes, could you just explain what is and who is the bond counsel?
Bond counsel is part of Unibank, or UFASI is what they call it. And what they do is they look at all of our documentation to make sure they're the ones that send down the language for all the loan orders, ballot questions, anything of that nature has to go through them to make sure everything is worded properly in order to get that passed, which then comes down to you folks here at council. So they look at all of our information, make sure that it's legal, make sure it's worded properly, and that has to go through bond counsel. So it's very important.
Thank you.
Good question. Council Conti.
Laura, I'm not sure I heard clearly what you were trying to explain. You have general obligation bonds
Yes.
coming due in May, which means that they're coming to an end in May, and there's $12 million of them, right?
That is correct.
And that what's coming due and what was there was the Oak Hill water tower, the wastewater, and water and fire trucks, various bonds. But are you saying that you can extend that bond at that rate and those terms by adding new things onto it?
No, what I'm saying is that these are coming due. So these are, some of them are, actually all of them are short-term, so they're short-term bans. Some of these projects are not complete. So we can go another short-term until they're complete, and then we can term them out for long-term. I can add additional things to this offering. So I can piece on the new police vehicles or the new fire vehicles as an addition to this and refinance it for not 12 million, but 12 plus.
So is that because the project's not going to be completed and doesn't need the money, you can use the money for something else?
No, you
I
can't.
still don't understand then.
So, okay, so when we have a bond, which I have with me, we have all these items. We did those short-term because those are in process. You can only borrow what you need for a period of time, because if you borrow too much, it can be considered arbitrage. So you can't go and invest that money at a higher rate of what you've borrowed it at. So these are coming due because they are bans. So you have an interest payment once a year on bans, which are, short term. And then if you have long term, it's 2 interest payments and a principal payment. We now are completing these projects, so some of these are going to still go short term because they're not quite complete yet. We still have additional time on them. And then at the end of those terms, we'll go long term. The new loan authorizations coming down can be added to this borrowing for the additional funds. Let's just say right now we have $975,000 for police and fire. We can put that and add this to this 12 million and then do that short term for another year to come due in May for that purpose and that purpose only.
This is a pretty common occurrence. We see
All
that
the
not
time.
just here, but throughout.
All the time.
I kind of equate it to a refinance.
Pretty much, that's what you want to,
right?
that's pretty much how you want to look at
You
it.
flood your basement, you go back and, can add terms, anything else. So this is
Absolutely.
more or less to help kind of take on inflation, help with any sort of overruns, projects.
And it's better to do so when you have things coming due
Yep.
instead of going, okay, we have something in May and now we're going to go back out in July.
Sure.
That's just not cost effective for the city to do that.
Even bringing it back to similar like a CD. A CD runs out, you're able to ladder that CD, you're able to add on to it, which is what we're trying to do here. So we can ensure that we're getting the most bang for our buck here and get the best rate and get the best ability to repay these. Council Hall.
So again, so the rate, when we renegotiate, if you would.
I don't know what it will be.
Exactly, would be whatever rate it is, the current rate.
Correct.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
Just
Sure.
for clarification, when you talk about this being more cost effective to add these on now as they come due in May, how much more cost effective? I mean, it sounds logical and all that, but just so that I can compare or
Well, you have to
have a better
understand, if we have a
understanding.
financial advisor, there is a fee involved with any kind of work that they do for the city. So if you're going out multiple times, that fee is going to be larger. If you do it multiple times, if you can package it in one deal per se, then it's not going to cost the city as much to pay that financial advisor.
Okay,
As well
so
as other fees, I would assume, that go into it as well.
That is
So as
correct.
opposed to having the financial advisor looking at it for each loan order,
Mm-hmm.
and then each loan order would then have its own fees and costs associated with it, we're able to really kind of bundle it all together.
logical, I just wanted a clarification.
I think it's a great question. It was a great question to ask. Okay, anything else? Laura, thank you so much, and keep
very
up the great work.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, so, thank you to everyone for your questions. I think it's great when we have a guest, we're able to make the most of it. So, all right, before we get to the loan orders, I have two other motions I want to read. So from the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to authorize the school department to pay the previous year's school bills totaling $1,882.70 regarding FY 2017 fiscal obligations that did not make the fiscal 2017 business cycle.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus. So there were a series of financial obligations that were not presented to the school department in time to be able to make it into the fiscal 2017 budget. A lot of this is housekeeping, their obligations, money that's already been set aside. So now we have to make sure that we pay those. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion passes. From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $35,010 from account 1124100-5783000, citywide reserve fund for transfer relative to special state elections, city/city debt exclusion/municipal Ward 6 election to the following accounts. $14,000 to account 116-21000-511-550 election salaries election. $550 to account 116-21000-527-010 election building rental. $7,600 to account 116-21000-530-910 election printing and repro. $4,000 to account 116-21000-530-1001 election professional services. $7,500 to account 116-21000-531-020 election police. $1,100 to account 116-21000-542-020 election supplies, election equipment. $260 to account 116-21000-5-52701 election POD rental.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus. Again, this is just the transfer so we can pay for the elections that we have coming up over the next several months. Any other questions, concerns? Yep, Council Cobus?
I forget where I had heard it, but I had heard that for the state rep election, the state would help fund some of that. Is there, have you heard anything
I
along those
can
lines? Or
find
is that?
out, I can certainly find that out. However, this motion is more about what we know we need to pay. So that would be the city's obligation regardless, but I'll certainly find out for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
President Cooper.
President Cooper.
Thank you. So there was some discussion about the amount that the state will reimburse, but that's, it's not necessarily a given. So we have to fund the whole thing up front, and then we could potentially get some reimbursement back from the state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay. From the docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $975,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping fire department vehicles, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $975,000 under Section 7, Chapter 7.1 of Chapter 44 of the general laws. Any premium received by the city upon sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. So this one is very specific to the, let's see, sorry, real quick. This is for the fire apparatus, which will be a new engine as well as a new ambulance. You know, in terms of the specifics, in terms of what will be on that fire engine, we won't know that yet until it's closer to completion, and that has to do with an awful lot of, you know, what are some of the state mandates that need to be on there, what has changed with SERPAD, what has changed with any of the other health agencies, and what has the state told us needs to be on there. The ambulance is just that, it's an ambulance, it's gonna have your stretcher, it's gonna have all the medical apparatus needed. So this is something that, you know, I don't think people, you know, because before I got on the council, I never really thought about how much wear and tear goes into a public safety vehicle. And we'll get more into that in a minute when we talk about the police. But this particular fire engine will be stationed out of South Attleboro. When I talked to the chief, he said primarily will be South Attleboro, potentially headquarters. It all depends on the need. But then what's nice is it's kind of a rotation. So the new engine is going to go where it's potentially going to be getting the most use and needed. So some of the other engines, as they get older, they will transfer to some of the smaller stations that aren't as busy as headquarters or South Attleboro. So it's really pretty cool. And the fire department and Chief LaChance does a great job at really pricing these things out. Very cost effective when it comes down to the treasurer for requests on what these are, and it's essential pieces of equipment to keep us safe. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion passes. From the docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $731,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping police and public work departmental vehicles and equipment. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $731,000 under Section 7-1 of Chapter 44 of the general laws. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. So this one is to purchase 7 new police cruisers and let me see if I can read my writing, for the DPW, a roadway sweeper, mini excavator, and a skid steer. Every 3 years, we go through this with the cruisers. Now, one thing, if you look at some of our like communities, cities of our size, even bigger, their cruisers run 24/7. And that puts an incredible amount of wear and tear on those cruisers. So what Chief Hegney's done is he has, generally, our police department's only gonna put 16 hours a day on each cruiser. And he's done a nice job over the last several years of doing it incrementally, where some of these cities around us that that have their cars in motion 100% of the time, every year they're spending upwards of $1 million on new cruisers for an entire fleet. This way here, we're able to get the most out of our cruisers, and we're able to really be able to do it in a more cost-effective manner. So we're able to, every 3 years, buy 7 cruisers, 6, 7 cruisers, whatever it might be. As far as the DPW is concerned, the sweeper and the skid steer will replace out-of-service equipment, whereas the mini excavator is new to the fleet. But this is going to be very important to really help cut down on collateral damage when doing different projects across the city. So these have been in the capital improvements. As I said, really shouldn't be much of a surprise. So I do want to thank Chief Hegney, Chief LaChance, Laura, and the DPW supervisor really for walking me through exactly what these purchases are. My committee, any questions? Okay, Councilor Blair, then Councilor Hall?
What's the current price of a police, what is the police cruiser package, Jay?
And I'll get firm numbers, but it's generally ballpark around 50,000.
Per unit?
Yeah,
So they're looking at 350,000.
Yep.
Just for your general knowledge, the city redid the contract towing,
yes.
and that contract went from 110,000 a year to 152 or 3,000 a year. I'd like to see that money stay in the police department rather than going back in the general fund, that additional money.
Absolutely agree.
It seems like a good idea.
Yep.
That basically is the best part of one cruiser. So over a 3-year period,
Yep.
the additional money that they were able to garner by putting this back out to bid pays for a cruiser a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, and that's something that the chief negotiated, I want to say probably 6 years ago, he renegotiated that contract, right? So, good.
Yeah, I think the previous bidder had it for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
And they decided, because economic times, to put it back out there and try, and we had a local company bid.
yep,
Fantastic outfit with the equipment and means to do a great job. And the bid was quite higher. It topped off at over $40,000 more, so. I'd like
certainly
to see
something we
that
can look
money
into. Agreed.
stay in there.
Yep. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Councilor Hall?
Yes, strangely enough, I've had conversations in the past week about people that look at all the how come we have so many beautiful cars over there at the police department? Do we really need all those vehicles? And if you could just reiterate what you just explained, because I can't tell you how many times people
Sure.
ask about that, and I try to explain that to them, but please, if you could do that.
Yeah, we are a city, and being a city of our size, there's certain public safety issues that will arise that we need to ensure that our police officers are equipped to deal with, and you can't really it's hard to chase a guy down on foot if he's in a car. So the chief has done a really nice job, as I've said, of keeping each cruiser in service 16 hours a day. So 16 hours on, 8 hours off. And it's not always the case. There are going to be extenuating circumstances. Cars break down. We've all been there. But this is really the way to ensure that we have top-notch services and we can protect the citizens of Attleboro. Vice President, President Cooper.
Thank you. So I'm in full support. Don't let my comments
Sure.
have anyone think that I'm not in full support, but I'm somewhat challenged with additional DPW equipment given what I saw when I went and what I heard from people at DPW in the recent snowstorm with resources to run machines. And I'm as equally delighted that there's a new DPW manager, in Mike Tyler, superintendent, to help us understand better really what the needs for the department is for equipment. So I will support this, but I personally will have greater scrutiny to equipment requests, new equipment requests to DPW, especially for things that aren't replacing something that's already there.
Sure.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I think that's a very valid point, and with everything we have coming down the line, we need to make sure that we're scrutinizing everything that comes down, especially with the equipment, because it is expensive. And again, I think it just shows to the forward thinking of Chief Hegney, and maybe that we just look at something the way we haven't before.
I think that I don't feel the same about the police vehicle situation, because I think that methodology that the chief uses to extend the life of the fleet has proven itself to be a good one. And we have enough vehicles to satisfy an emergency. We have things happen to them, they break, they don't, they get in accidents, and so there is the ability to rotate them. We do this every so many years to buy new cruisers. I'm in support of that. My comments were really directed toward DPW, additional DPW equipment if there's not the manpower to run it.
Right. Well, and I think that's a fair point. And we're in a situation where we can really do something about that. We can work, especially coming down a budget. I think these are the appropriate questions to be asking. And my comments were and maybe I didn't articulate it, is I think the challenge has kind of been thrown out there, especially to Mike being new. Let's take a look at it, and maybe there's a way we can reevaluate when and why we're sending down requests. Yeah. Okay, Vice President Parika, Council Blair, Council Holmes.
So, just to back up with with President Cooper's comments, I'm 100% in support of the police cruisers, not a problem. I struggle a little bit also with the DPW because I've been down there. I was happy, so there's a new skid steer coming through, and the street sweeper's we've had to contract out. That's been an issue for years, so I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm happy to report that it was discovered that previously skid steers were not thought to be able to fit on the sidewalks, the fancy sidewalks outside, or quote, as people refer to them, as the fancy sidewalks outside, and they do. So, but we need bodies to operate that machinery. And when it's time for my committee meeting, we had a meeting with Mike Tyler, and I think he's doing, he's coming out of the box hot, and I think he's doing a great job, and I have every faith that he'll complete a good analysis of what's there and how to get bodies in the seats.
Yeah. And actually, a question for Councilor Conti, and I don't have your schedule for the capital improvements memorized. Is there going to be a trip down to the DPW?
There is.
So I think that this could be an apropos time to kind of combine both and just kind of express what our concerns are, especially as we're looking into the capital improvements as well.
We'll be at the Public Works on March 31st at 9 o'clock.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Blair and then Councilor Holmes.
Excuse me. Just to add to your comments on the police cruisers.
Sure.
Chief Hegney has initiated a program similar to the state police where police officers feel they have ownership to a cruiser. The guy goes in, he doesn't drive this cruiser today, that cruiser tomorrow, that one next week. So there is still that pride of ownership, and when something goes wrong or a car is abused for any particular reason, it's easy to find out where the problem lies.
Yep.
This in turn, pride of ownership works with anything, your parks, the cars you drive, your office that you're in. So I think that, along with the great maintenance we have on them over there, helps to prolong the life of these cruisers. And it shows because the cars aren't one. I worked on those cars when he almost put them together with baling wire. They ran them so long, so hard.
Right.
So the cruisers, the way they're taken care of now, the way they're maintained, and also the way they're put out there for the officers to drive, there is that pride of ownership. And
that's right. Adds to life and goes a long way.
Yeah.
Councilor Holmes.
Is it possible to split up the two to see exactly what the cost is for the police cruisers versus like the Public Works Department? So that way we can kind of really...
Yeah, it will be in the backup documentation. I can get that out again. But the other thing, at this stage in the game, if we do that, this isn't a typical motion where we can just amend because it's a loan order. Okay. We would have to go back to the drawing board, but I can certainly get that information.
Well, just because there was some talk about whether it was necessary, so it would just be interesting to see what the difference would be, I guess.
Yeah, I think that all of these, the cruisers are certainly necessary. The skid steer and the, let's see, the sweeper and the mini excavator. Let's see. The excavator is new to the fleet, so with some of the projects we have going on, I do believe that's a need that we have. Okay. And again, as the treasurer said, this is a situation where we want to try to get these in at this point so we can try to take the advantage of bundling them all together. But I can certainly get those prices. President Cooper, and then you just almost got promoted. Councilor Dolan.
I did, I should have said in my previous comments that I also met with the mayor about all of these loan orders, and he was in support of spending after discussions with each of the department heads. So it was more of a, from my perspective, it was more of an FYI to the department head in terms of what I saw, what my experience has been, and what I heard from employees. Was that, it was an issue of bodies to man the equipment versus the need for the equipment. So I'm okay with it, but just just to put some additional clarity on my comments.
We're certainly in a situation right now with everything going on. We need to sharpen our pencils. So I think your comments are very apropos. Councilor Dolan.
Actually, President Cooper answered my question. So it was just, so time is of the essence with this.
Correct.
And so basically your concern and what you were saying was for the future. So if we
Yeah.
put this through now, we're going to scrutinize if they ask for anything else or whatever the case may be.
We don't want to buy new shiny toys and have no one being able to play with the new shiny toys.
And I'm glad that Council Parika and Vice President Parika, excuse me, and President Cooper said that, because I haven't
Sure.
been down there, I haven't taken my trip, and I wasn't aware that we were lacking bodies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good information to have.
Absolutely. So a lot to think about. Vice President
Just
Parika.
really quickly, they, with the mini excavator, they share that sometimes among other departments too.
Right.
So, it will be housed and maintained through DPW, but other departments, when it's necessary, they all work together. So it isn't something that's, my hope is that it's not specifically just for them and that other departments will also be able to utilize it. And to clarify my comments as well, is I have no interest in holding up the loan order. It has my support. This was the time to make comments that were heard.
Absolutely.
To address concerns that we have. Thank you.
Every discussion that we've had here tonight has been the right discussion to have. So this is great. So any other questions or comments on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, and finally, from the docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $3,200,000 is appropriated for the design, permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and construction costs associated with repairing and replacing the HVAC at the city's water treatment plant on West Street in Attleboro, collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $3,200,000 under Section 8, subsection 4 of Chapter 44 of the general laws or any other enabling authority. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of an issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus. I will be requesting the waiving of the readings on these. But this is the last one. Paul Kennedy came down, spoke on behalf of the project. We knew this was coming down. No one really asked any questions of Paul at the public hearing. I think this is something that we need to be able to do. That concludes my comments on that. Councilor Cobus.
What was the contingency on this one again? I remember it was high.
9%.
It was 20%, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:42.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 7:42. Thank you all.
All right, I call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order at 7:42. Members of the committee include Councilor Hall and Councilor Delissio. And I have 2 orders of business tonight, and I'll also review some of what we discussed last night at the Zoning and Land Use special meeting. So, from the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the conveyance of the Judy H. Robbins Riverfront Park located at the northerly side of Olive Street and the southerly side of Wall Street and shown as Lot 1 on a plan entitled Judith H. Robbins Riverfront Park, Riverfront Drive, Attleboro, Mass. See attached deed.
Second.
All right, so this is pretty straightforward. This was transferred over to the ARA and is now being conveyed back to the city. And this definitely needs to happen before we can rename the road there. So that concludes my comments. Any other comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. And now, before I get into the second motion, I'm going to review what we talked about last night, and then we'll get into the second motion. So, as part of the special zoning and land use committee last night, we reviewed a draft ordinance, update to the RMD zoning ordinance from the city planner. Based on our guidance to him, he came back with a draft ordinance with a few different updates. We reviewed those updates. We made a few changes to them as far as distances. These changes were very specific and targeted changes to address some of the concerns that have come up with RMDs being located next to each other and difficult, some vague language regarding how distances are measured. So this clarifies all of that. I will introduce that draft ordinance as new business this week, and then we will begin to discuss it later. So that was one of the first things that we discussed. The second item we discussed was the separation of power and discuss whether or not the municipal council should be the special permit granting authority for RMDs, and I will talk about that more when we get into the second motion tonight. And then the final item we discussed was a recreational or adult use ordinance, and the plan moving forward is the city planner and I will work on drafting, coming up with a draft ordinance to be reviewed in 2 weeks at the next zoning and land use meeting on Monday. We will not have a meeting next Monday because it's President's Day, it's a holiday. So in 2 weeks on, I think it's the 26th, is when we'll meet again. And the intent of that meeting is to review this draft ordinance for recreational marijuana. Does anybody have questions about the meeting that happened last night or any comments?
I thought you did a great job last night. I thought it was really super informative. It was great having Gary here, and the way you're coming. You covered a lot of territory. You have a great game plan set out. I appreciate the timeliness in which you're addressing all of this. It's an enormous amount of work, especially for a freshman counselor. So I just want to give you mad kudos for that. And I look forward to seeing what the draft that comes out in a couple weeks is. So.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Okay. So moving on, from the docket of December 5th, 2017, I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 40A, Section 5 of Mass General Law as follows. 1. Amend Section 17-3.4, 11C, Table of Use Regulations as follows. Delete SMC under Industrial I and IBP and insert SP. Principal uses, community facilities, residential, business, industrial, and then it displays the table. 2, amend section 17-10.15, registered marijuana dispensary uses as follows. Delete municipal council and insert zoning board of appeals. This has a deadline of March 19th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. So we discussed this briefly last night, and my initial intent was to sit on this for a period of time until we straightened out the ordinances, until we, for a number of reasons. I was unaware that there was a deadline of March 19th, so that's why we're bringing it forward today. And the 3 pieces of information that we reviewed and talked about last night regarding this is we have the certificate of vote from the planning board meeting, where they voted unanimously to say that they approved moving this to the zoning board of appeals. Secondly, we have the ruling from the city solicitor, where she said that the city has the authority to be the granting authority for the special permits. She did not have an opinion one way or the other. She said there were arguments to support both sides of this, and she did not have a specific opinion which way we should go with that. But she did say we do have the authority to grant special permits. And then the third item I have was from the State House News Service that Councilor Hall provided, where it talks about Palmer's planning board approving an RMD in their city. It just shows evidence of at least one city where the special permit granting authority is with their planning board. Last night, Councilor Hall discussed it. There are also a number of other towns that do this. We were going to hold up try to move this out of committee tonight while we waited to hear back from the city planner. He was going to try to investigate to see if we could find out from a lot more cities what they do as far as is the special permit granting authority with the planning board or the zoning board or with the municipal council. He got back to us around 4 o'clock tonight and said they don't have that information. So based on that, I think we need to move forward with the information we have. So the two arguments I see for and against this is in favor of it. The Zoning Board of Appeals does this all the time. They have the expertise. They're the professionals with this. They have more expertise than I feel we do. So I do understand that side of this. On the other side, I do think RMDs are controversial, at least right now, and based on that, I do think there is some value in having the hearings in front of the municipal council and being debated in front of the city. I do think, at least for now, there's some value in that. So that's my argument for and against. Just because I agree to, or I think we should move it out of committee, does not mean that I'll necessarily support it when we discuss it in front of the whole council. Councilor Hall?
Yeah, and I agree with both of those arguments in particular, but what I disagree with is the RMD part of it. I don't think, me personally, I don't think RMDs are controversial anymore, okay? We've had some go through, we've got a process. When I say controversial, I mean, all of this is always going to be controversial, but what I'm looking at is, do we have a proper process in place? And I really feel that we have a very sound process in place for RMDs. I may not feel that same way, absolutely, when it comes to recreational marijuana. So I want to make that distinguishing thing, is that I'd be more apt to say, okay, here, because we do have a process, went fine, but definitely thinking again as we go through recreational marijuana, because now that's what we're moving into, and that still would be a little bit fuzzy for us.
Thank you, Councilor Hall.
Thank you. First of all, amazing job on this. I mean, the information that you're providing us is just really outstanding. We're lucky to have the planning board and the zoning board of appeals that we have here. They're very good. They do an amazing job. That being said, I'm going to support voting this out of committee, but like yourself, I'm not sure I can support this motion at this time. I think we need to be able to get our own footing underneath us, and there's still too much that's changing, as Council Hall was alluding to, the RMD versus recreational. There's a lot we don't know. Respectfully, I'm going to disagree. I think there's still a certain level of controversy even around the RMD in terms of those who want it, those who don't want it, what can we do, what can't we do. I think ultimately, our goal should be to move this to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I personally don't feel we're at that point yet.
I agree with you. Controversial is also a very subjective term.
Yeah.
Yes, and so just because this doesn't pass now, doesn't mean we can't reintroduce it 6 months, 9 months down the road. Councilor Reynolds.
Councilor Kovas, if you wouldn't mind, just for our viewers, on that one section here, and this goes to something else, where it says delete SMC under industrial I and IBP and insert SP. Would you just let our viewers know what those, what they stand for, those letters stand for?
Yes, so SMC is the Special Municipal Council. And so we're changing it in I and IBP or industrial and industrial business park. So the intent of this is to change the special permit granting authority for registered marijuana dispensaries from the municipal council to the zoning board of appeals.
So, I can't, so I'm trying to understand what SP is.
Special permit.
Special permit, excuse me.
Thank you. No, my fault.
Did I miss one of the acronyms?
And I just, my mind went blank, so I thank you. I'm looking at
Sure.
it, and thank you so much.
Do I have to look this way? I think I saw Councilor Blair first.
Council Cobus, I was at the meeting last night with you. Nice job.
Thank you.
But I'm under the same guidelines as Councilor Delicio. I think it's too early to shift the responsibility out of the council. I think it's, if we don't bring this out tonight, I know you talked about a deadline. We have to reintroduce it. To me, that's a sure way of giving us time to not have to vote it down, not to make it a he said, she said, and we go round and round about it. I think the basic need that we have to look at is the security of our residents and their safety. I think it's too early to jump in to pass this law. We are elected officials. We are responsible to our constituents. I think that's where it lies right now. 6 months from now, a year from now, things get smoothed out, hopefully, then I think that's plenty of time to start shedding some of the responsibility. Right now, I think the responsibility lies with the 11 of us. We have direct voters to talk to, and we're responsible to. Your zoning boards, your planning boards, all your boards, they're appointed. We're elected. And this is a major factor right now in how this is going to be run, handled, problems. We're the elected officials. We're supposed to solve those problems. So I think it's too early to excuse the expression, fluff this off to somebody else. It belongs here, at least for the time being. I don't even think it should be brought out for, should be brought out for a vote of this council. I think it should be let lie till we see how the ground levels out.
Thank you, Councilor Blair. And I was on the fence with this, and I struggled back and forth deciding, should we just let the let it expire on March 19th, or as the committee chair, I decided I did not want to do that. I thought it warranted a discussion, and I thought that was the respectful thing to do to with the other members of the committee.
Discussion, but maybe we could get that second withdrawn and leave it the way it is.
I'm not going to withdraw the second.
Thank you. So part of the reason why there's, just as a pleasant reminder, the deadline is imposed because we had the public hearing and we had 90 days to take action. Right. If we don't take any action whatsoever, then it just goes away into Never Never Land. If we vote it out, vote it down, or however you, well, I kind of just gave an indicator as to how I feel about this. So I think that the comments last night, I mean, when you were discussing it and saying I'd like to hold off on this for 6 months, and then we're like, oh wait, we can't because we have a deadline. I'm glad we caught it before rather than after. We've done that before. That didn't go so well for us. I think taking action on it now, it holds us responsible for what we've done. And so it wasn't, we just ignored it and it disappeared, and we took action. We know what we want. The planning board, we can reintroduce it as new business. The planning board can make their recommendation again. We have zoning ordinances that need to be corrected for RMDs, so let's get that. Instead of handing this over to them where we still have work to do on the ordinances, I just don't think that that's fair to them. So I would be I'm not on your committee, but I don't have a problem with you voting it out of committee and then having the discussion next week and then starting the process all over again when we're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I, too, think that, to some of Peter's points, we are elected, and we're elected to vote, and I don't think it should be up to the 3 individuals on that committee to prevent the rest of the council from voting on any matter. So I think it is appropriate to bring it out of committee and bring it before the full council for all the reasons you said. But I think that this issue, everyone here, in my opinion, deserves a vote on whether or not it should be changed or not. So I'm not in support of letting it stay in committee to just go away.
Thank you, President Cooper.
Just,
Councilor DeLista.
Council Blair, I agree with what you're saying, 100%. However, I will not be withdrawing my second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
All
I
right.
got your back.
Any further comments?
No.
All right, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That concludes my business for tonight. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Zoning and Land Use Committee is adjourned at 8 p.m.
Good evening. I call the Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting to order at 8 p.m. My members are Councilor Conti and Councilor Reynolds. I just have a couple of updates to give to you this evening. We had Traffic Study Commission meeting last night, and Mike Tyler, it was his first time coming to Traffic Study, so it was nice to be able to introduce him to the Traffic Study Commission. We had some really good conversation. They're still working on, one of the number one things I'm asked is the set of lights at Rathbun Willard by Studley. That's still in process. That kind of ties in a bit with the high school renovation and things like that. So that's not anything we're moving on particularly quickly. They were interested to find out about the discussion with regards to Beagle Club Road last week, so I filled them in on that. And they actually had a piece of business they had further discussion. They struck that from their docket. They are very well aware that I have business in my committee as it pertains to Beagle Club Road still. So if there's anything that needs to be referred to them, they will get it. I did meet with Mayor Paul, as I like to call him, because he likes to be called Paul, so I put it all together. I did have a meeting with him yesterday afternoon, and we discussed at length potential, Ms. Reynolds introduced new business last week. It was referred to the administration. We had some great discussion about things that he's open to, which is what my comments were last week, that this administration is a little bit more open to having a discussion about parking pass programs, augmented parking lots at the end of the roadway. He has his research and development to get through. He has to talk with Gary and Conservation, and he really feels that there's a decent solution that can be found for that location, so I'm excited about that. I did give him some individuals to make some phone calls. I gave him kind of the history. He didn't necessarily, he followed along about Beagle Club Road in the Sun Chronicle like everybody else, but he didn't have some of the more intimate details of that circumstance at that location. There also seems to be, someone put up some no trespassing signs and some fence down on Wagon Lane, which no one knows where those came from, so someone will be taking a look into that. And he was interested in potentially expanding parking at all the different locations, access points for Beagle Club Road. So I'm thoroughly encouraged and excited. I made the request of him to keep myself and the Ward 1 counselor, Ward 2 counselor in the loop as things go along. And I would appreciate it also if any of you are having discussions with him with regards to this, just keep me in the loop. I explained to Mayor Paul that he put a Facebook post up on Sunday night that he met with one of my colleagues about Beagle Club Road, and my phone starts ringing off the hook. So it's, it is something that, again, it's, as the chairperson for traffic and transportation, this is business that's in my committee. It's important for me to understand what's going on. So with that, I know that there's a potential meeting on Friday with Diana and Sarah. I'm more than happy if you would like me to schedule a committee meeting prior to next week's meeting for you to give us an update from your meeting. That would be fine. Just send me an email and let me know. President Cooper.
Thank you. I have a recurring meeting with the mayor every Tuesday at 4:30, and it was a topic of our discussion today as well for some history, even prior to me being the counselor. I think you've probably all heard me say that one of the first places that George and I went to was Beagle Club Road. And he explained to me what his thoughts were, his initial reaction and thoughts were, and has already been to, yesterday I believe, to meet some of the neighbors, met with the planning department and the conservation agent at the site, and they're looking at some options. So I think it will be, I'm hopeful, to quote Bob Mangiarotti, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can do something relatively quickly there to resolve the issue. So I was happy to hear that from him, and I think it's all good news. So thank you.
Thank you very much. In addition to that, it's just, we kind of just, the recommendations, whether it's a parking, resident parking only, parking pass, parking spots at the end of the road, whatever the case may be, that's going to take time. The ordinance that we passed last week, it's on a 30-day hold because that's typical of any ordinance change. It allows the DPW to catch up and create signage and things like that. So I will have to meet with the mayor again because we're going to have to change things and then potentially have to change them again. So people just need to be aware that, with any luck, things will move rapidly in that location. But again, this is government, and it runs a little slow on occasion as well. Mr. Delisio.
Thank you. What I would say is, sure, government moves slow, but with this, there's so many moving pieces that, from the neighbors to the administration to the council to different departments, that we all need to make sure we're on the same page in order to get it right, or else 6 months, we'll be right back.
We're back here.
So,
right.
What's old is new again.
Sure. I couldn't agree with you more. Councilor Hall.
Yes, thank you. Since you brought up Wagon Lane Road, if you would have a conversation with me at some point in time, because I have a document that I think that I will direct you to, that you probably need to look at.
Sure. Great.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I did speak, so that's enough about Beagle Club Road for yet another evening. And so again, just if you're having discussions, just keep me in the loop, because then it makes everything just much smoother. In addition to that, I do have two pieces of business with regards to Riverbank Road and Stobbs Drive. There was a request for an investigation in those two locations to restrict parking. Well, Riverbank Road is to actually make it legal to park where everybody parks on Riverbank Road, and to do that prior to paving season, which is coming up. And in addition to that, we have Stobbs Drive, which is over by Bishop Fee High School, where we have difficulties at Halcott and Commonwealth, where students or faculty or whoever it is parking around the edges there. And there's been an increase in enforcement, so I'm appreciative to the Attleboro Police Department for increasing enforcement over there. And I appreciate Tim Sullivan, the president over there, frequently reminding the students about, common traffic laws that they need to abide by. However, the Traffic Study Commission is hitting the road. We're very excited. We're going to have a site visit February 23rd. It's next Friday at 11 o'clock. I also, so we posted a meeting for the Traffic Study Commission. We are meeting on Stobbs Road by the Bishop Fee Library at 11 a.m. Everyone is invited. I did ask Virginia to also, and she did, and I will send out a reminder email. She also posted it for the Traffic and Transportation Committee, so that any of us who is interested in visiting these locations, you're all more than welcome to come. We can have open discussion. So we will start at Stobbs by Feehan, and then we'll conclude over at Riverbank Road. I have a commitment from the Traffic Study Commission to make a recommendation next month, so we can move along, because I'll have to submit the language call for a public hearing, and we need to get into, specifically as it pertains to Riverbank Road, before there's a big paving program getting ready to take off down there this spring, so we want to get those in place prior to that. Any questions or concerns? President Cooper.
Thank you, Vice President Preca. When I was reviewing the minutes and made my calls today when I had questions, I forgot to call you about, and I'm sorry, the light at County. Can you give us an update on Councilor Conti's business relative to that installation there?
All that I can really do about that is refer it back over to the DPW. I did speak to them. Again, there's, with Mike being new, I've been giving him time. He's had snowstorms, he's had all sorts of things like that to address. It might be something actually we might want to consider referring to the administration, because he would be the one that would be able to make the recommendation.
Sure, so could we...
Last time.
I'm sorry?
So could we at your next committee meeting, could we plan to have a formal discussion and a vote and send it up in the form of a vote, and then he can send back down an appropriation for whatever it's going to cost to put it in? Because I think Councilor Conti is likely going to say that it's been a long time, and this is the second go around for this important public safety issue that we thought was resolved the last time.
Sure.
So I'm happy to vote it out if we discuss it and you get info from Mike and others, and then the mayor can then send down an appropriation when he needs it to put the thing up.
Sure. Happy to do it. I'm just making my note.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else for this evening? All right. I call for an adjournment of the Transportation and Traffic Committee at 8:10.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 8:10.
Laura, you canceled tonight?
I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 8:12, I think it looks like. My committee members are obviously myself, Councilor Blair, and Councilor Holmes. I only have one on the docket tonight. So from the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, the donation of 15 water fillers, bubblers with an estimated total value of $18,000 from the YMCA of Attleboro, a new Matter MOD-T 3D printer with an estimated value of $200 for the Studley Elementary School from an anonymous donor, and 2 used Toshiba Chromebooks with an estimated combined value of $250 for the Attleboro High School from Richard Stembach. Second. Thank you. I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. We're all very thankful for all the donations we get. That the donation from the YMCA is huge, and I appreciate all of the donations we get from all of the people here in the city and businesses in the city here in Attleboro. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That is all the business I have this evening, and I would like to take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I am adjourned at 8:14. Or we, the City Property and Claims Committee, is adjourned at 8:14.
Yeah, sure. For personal and human services. Yeah, okay.
Call the Personnel and Human Services Committee to order at 8:12. Committee members are myself, Councilor Reynolds, and Councilor Blair. I don't have any business or any motions tonight, but I did want to encourage people to check out the article that was in the paper today about Attleboro Mayor seeks volunteers. This would be people that would come to, if you want to get involved in the city in any way, feel free to reach out. But what we're really looking for, what he's curious to kind of get started or interested in getting started is the Council on Disability has 8 positions open, the Council on Human Rights has 7, and the Council on Substance Abuse Prevention has 5 openings. So if you're interested in all and getting involved in the city, feel free to reach out to his office, and he's looking for a resume or a letter of intent. But there's over, I don't even know, 20 boards, so I'm sure you can find some way to get involved if you're interested. And that concludes my business. Well, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. That concludes my business. Meeting to adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, adjourned at 8:14.
You can move right into,
Move right into it.
so,
Okay, I will be calling the Ordinance, Election, and Legislative Matters Committee. I entertain from the...
just one point about him.
Okay, sorry.
So, Council Hall is going to excuse herself for the discussion on the first matter in this committee, and Council Holmes is going to do that business, and then Council Hall will join us.
From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to approve submittal of the following question to the voters at the April 3rd, 2018 election, the ballot question. Shall the city of Attleboro be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 and 1.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to design, construct, equip, furnish a new high school located at 100 Rathburn Willard Drive, Attleboro, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs, incidentals, or related thereto? Yes or no?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So I just have a few comments just to provide some context. So Council Hall cannot vote on matters on which she's going to be on that ballot. So that she's excused herself for that. The other issue is we did have a letter from the school committee. You got a subsequent email clarifying the date. There was a date discrepancy, and I asked Chairman Withers to give a response to moving the date, of which he did, and you all received that. So, you know, I'm in favor of the April 3rd date, and I hope that you are as well. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And that concludes one piece of business, but I'll...
Yep. So, yep, Council Hall can come back and surrender the chair.
Thank you.
Probably should have recessed. You know what, Diana, just procedurally, if I may, you should just recess the committee, take a vote to recess, and then Council, you can do it right from there, and then Council Hall can come back and resume.
Okay.
Motion to recess.
Motion to
Motion to
recess.
recess?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. We're in recess.
We are
I
in
recessed
recess.
at 8, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
17.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to call out of recess the Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee, and thank you very much for handling that business.
At 8:17 p.m.
Thank you, at 8:17 p.m. So I think I have now, just make sure where we're at. All right, so the second motion that we have for this particular item, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B as amended in preparation for the proposed April 3rd, 2018 debt exclusion ballot question, so that the city of Attleboro would be authorized to provide the voters of Attleboro with important information concerning the debt exclusion.
Second.
Thank you. So we all know that it's for preparation. It's very, very important that people understand what they're voting on. And this gives the city the opportunity to go full steam ahead to ensure that that happens. I think that's a very, very important thing to do, and I would ask everybody to approve this vote. Thank you. Yes, Councilor.
Thank you. If just add some additional comments to your initial comments. This affords the city the opportunity to put a yay and a nay information on the ballot to the voters, and the mayor will go through that process of the yay versus the nay. And we, the council, I sent a request just today to the mayor's office to fund the notifications that are required as part of this to the voters. So we'll also see an appropriation for that coming down soon. But just so you're sort of all aware of the reason why we need to adopt this. The city never adopted it, but for a debt exclusion to put or for a ballot question to put the yay, nay, you need to adopt this.
And would you like me to read that whole section, or think you just summarized it very well?
I think everybody received it, unless anybody wanted it. It's up to you.
Everybody's good? Thank you. And I think you summarized it very well. Thank you.
Yeah, at first I was a little bit confused, but it is very common to just, when there's an election, you get something in the mail that says somebody's for it, somebody's against it, and it just gives voters a little bit of a different lens, and I think it's helpful, so.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And did you have?
No, I did not.
Anybody else? No? Okay, so seeing that, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, the next motion I have is about the dog park. I entertain a motion to approve the request of Linda Blodgett of 21 Prospect Street, Attleboro, Mass. To use the dog park with dog owners' own lighting until 7 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you for the second. I did talk to Butch Kiefer, who is the person who handles this, and I did take a look at 2 different ordinances, actually, and I just want to read out of the section for dog parks, which is 9-45, Section 9-45.2, Park Operations. The superintendent of Departments of Parks and Forestry shall have authority to control the dog park and to make reasonable rules for its operation that are consistent with the ordinance. The dog park will be operated year-round on a daily basis from sunrise to sunset unless closed for maintenance or severe weather. There is another ordinance that I looked at just to give you some perspective on this, and it's actually the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Chapter 12, which has very, very similar language for every one of our parks. So when I talked to Mr. Kiefer and asked him his thought process on there and asked him for a little bit of background, what was happening is his employees were going home and it would be dark out and they would see these lights there, and that would then leave this area unattended, if you would. And the whole idea of having dawn to dusk, if you would, is for liability issues. So I did ask him his particular thought processes on it, and he said that, you know, he did not think it was the proper thing to be doing, and that they did have a conversation with the individual about this. He also mentioned to me that they do have even more difficulties than that with people following the rules over there. So just on his behalf, I'm going to say people, you know, I mean, this was a great thing. I think this dog park, I think people really wanted this. I remember when this first came out and sort of a lot of discussion. So in order to keep this going, to be a safe place for people you have to follow the rules. You really need to follow the rules and realize that if we were to change the rules for this, you'd be changing the rules for every park, the zoo, and so forth. So, yes, Councilor Perica.
So I have two points to make. So first, was that a motion to strike?
No, it was not a motion to strike. Again, I just wanted it to come out. I wanted to. Okay.
So my other question would be, did you speak with the new superintendent of Park and Forestry about this as well?
No, I did not. I did not. And there is some language in Parks and Forestry, but when I did talk to Butch Kiefer, you know, he basically said that they have their own section, if you would, so I did not.
So I would not be supporting this if it goes through your committee. I remember vividly having heated discussion with individuals who live in and around Keeper Park who like to walk their dogs in the wintertime when it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they can't because the ordinance is from dawn till dusk. I think it would be concerning for that to happen, and I'm very friendly with the organizers of the dog park, and I know the effort that they went through, and we had the special committee on dog parks, and we did all of those kinds of things, and we do have individuals that utilize, I go and utilize the dog park all the time, and we do have individuals that are there in the daylight that aren't doing the job that they're supposed to be doing and aren't following the ordinance set forth as it pertains to dog parks. I understand the want and the need for lighting, but again, it kind of opens up a door to somewhere, when we have people who are walking their dogs in Capron Park and the police are saying, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be here, we can't say, but it's okay in this other location, in this particular circumstance. So as this moves forward, it will not have my support on the council.
Agreed. Councilor Jackson?
Thank you, Council Hall. So can we make this a motion to strike it from the docket, since you're discussing it and you're giving the reasons why it shouldn't be and why we can't approve it? So let's make it a motion to strike it. That'd be great.
I think it's important that we have an opportunity to discuss it, and this was the only way I could bring it up for discussion, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. So for all the reasons that Council Parika mentioned, I can remember Council Reynolds and I used to sit next to each other and having the discussion about Capron Park, really, if we don't do it, if we do it here, we could be, setting ourselves up for being able to do it somewhere else where it might even be a bit better lit and more accessible and more people around to see what goes on, and even that's hard to control. So I'm not in support of making any change at this time. Thank you.
While we're on it, I just want to first recognize the resident for bringing this forward and using the dog park and taking that ownership of it. But the two words that I'm hearing over and over playing in my head, safety and liability, safety and liability. So I would be in favor of it being struck, even though I'm not in the committee.
Nope. Anybody else wants to make a comment? Okay, so I can
have a comment.
Oops.
Sorry, I just thought of something. I mean, maybe, I don't think that we can really change an ordinance around one individual. If this is a need for many other people, maybe we could have summer hours where the sun's setting, like maybe we could do something, make some changes for this, but I don't think that we can make a whole change based on one person wanting to bring their own lighting in, because now we're trying to make access in other areas, we're trying to get parking in other areas, and is this going to kind of spread, and what does that mean for other public places?
Sure. I don't think there's anybody in disagreement with that. Thank you.
Councilor Hall, if it's dawn to dusk, then in this...
Oh, yeah, so the summer, you're right.
It would be openly, but they'd still pretty much, the workers would be gone. Am I incorrect in that? Most of the, I mean, it's not like we do, like, do the police actually go by? I know they go by Capron Park and stuff.
They do.
And they go there.
Yes, they do.
So that's all. I mean, I think it's the same, dawn to dusk, it would be later.
Right.
So I think it would be in the summer. Yeah.
And they've been called, just so you know, and that's caused some difficulty too. And I don't mean this in any disrespect to anybody, but our police officers, I think, have better things to do with their time. So,
yeah, well, but I mean, it is dawn to dusk.
No,
I mean, so that's really the only thing that matters. That's now what covers.
But maybe it could be extended in the winter. People get home from work at 5 o'clock, it's already dark. It's very hard, then you're walking your dog and you have nowhere to...
But it is true. We covered this, and Councilor...
Does anybody else?
President Cooper said this.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you done? Sorry.
I'm just blabbering.
Blabbering's okay. Does anybody else have anything? Right, so do I have to do anything, or can I just make an amendment to strike?
Was there a second?
No, so...
There was a second. Yeah.
So I would, Councilor Jackson would withdraw, and then you could bring it out as a motion to strike, which will then go before the full council, so if there is someone who isn't... Yeah.
Okay, thank you, you're going to remove your second, thank you so much. So I'd like to make a motion to amend...
No, motion to strike.
Excuse me, I'd like to entertain a motion to strike the request of Linda Brodgett of 21 Prospect Street, Attleboro, Mass., to use the dog park with dog owners' own lighting until 7 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes. The motion has been stricken. Yay. Okay. I just want to give some updates, and I do want to say, and I said this to Councilor Delicio, I have a great appreciation now for ordinances. There's lots of paperwork that goes along with this, and there's a lot of research that I have to do, but I like to do that. So I did want to just give a little update on the annual senior exemption. I did have an opportunity to meet again with Brian Lynch, who was over at the Senior Center giving a presentation on the senior circuit breaker tax credit, which it was very good to be there because I understand it a little bit better what's going on with that in particular. And if anybody wants the paperwork to understand how that works, that is one of the opportunities that our seniors do have based on their income, and it's an interesting formula that they get. And they also can put water and sewer fees go back up, to help them with that. So there's a lot going on, and I think it's really important that people understand that. So I do have that there. In reference to the motion, a Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, I still need to speak to Barry Lacasse about this, so that's still outstanding. So I just wanted to let people know that that's still happening. If we have an opportunity to, I did talk to Madeline, and she said she'd be happy to come over and speak to us about the programs and what she thought about it when she kind of determines which way she wants to go. I think her recommendation, it would be very helpful to explain, because sometimes when we make these, we look at some of these opportunities, we don't always understand the repercussions of what that causes and how the program actually works. So I'm really have been talking to her quite frequently about this. So that's still to come. Automobile rental license. I did want to tell you that I have looked through this chapter 140, and I have it here, and I went through the entire pages, 12 pages, and there was nothing listed anymore about automobile rental licensing. However, on that particular MGL, Mass General License, I did see a number of spots where repeal, repeal, repeal. So I'm assuming that perhaps this particular item has been repealed. I do have a call into or email into the solicitor to make sure I didn't miss anything. I looked this thing over 3 times and couldn't find it. So it does appear that it's been repealed, but I do want to validate that before I actually go ahead, put a motion in to strike it. Hawkers and peddlers, I did give the solicitor, or suggested 2 different definitions to the solicitor in terms of what she felt to break this down, and they're going to be very specific about door-to-door. One of those might be what's called a transient merchant, and the other one, a particular type of solicitor. So you can actually define a solicitor as a door-to-door. But she's looking at those things right now, and they're to see what the best thing to do is. But and that's my understanding that was going on there. I think that might be. I just wanted to give you an update on that. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to close the Committee on Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters at 8:34. Second? Excuse me?
Do you have one more motion?
We're on the budget.
Nope.
Jay, didn't you pick up the Simmons grant? Didn't you pick up the Simmons grant?
The Senator
Oh,
Charles
yes.
that's
Shannon?
correct.
Okay.
That
just print it.
went to somebody else.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Thanks for bringing that up, just so you know that we found that there was there was something put in my committee that didn't belong in my committee. It was moved out.
Okay.
And before your items got corrected.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And it was voted through Peter's committee tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. So I need a second on 8:34. Thank you. So we are going to close in, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Sorry, Miss.
I'd like to call a special committee on council rules and procedures to order at 8:34. Sitting on this committee is Councilor Conkey, Cobus, and Parika. We don't have anything formal, but I would like to bring one thing formally about to you. on the committee, I've had the administrative assistant circulate to you Word documents of the rules and procedures so that you can edit them at your leisure. I've been working on them a total of 7 hours so far, and I'm only on page 21. So it's a time-consuming task. I'm warning you, try to set aside some blocks of time, and you're going to get tired of reading them. But I would like to bring one motion out tonight, if I may. From the docket of January 23rd, 2018, I move to allow the council members the use of non-cellular devices, such as tablets, in addition to request the administration to investigate the possibility of supplying council members with tablets to be used at meetings to provide members with electronic copies of agendas, committee minutes, motions, etc., and decrease the use of paper in the council office.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Copus. My thought was this was something we could move on, rather than waiting to go through the whole rules and procedure, because I think that the council is going to want to discuss this in detail when it comes up to the council floor, and we may even want to partition this into 2 different motions where we can segregate it, and we're allowed to do that. So we might want to, in the future, take this motion and break it down into 2 parts. 1, allow the use of electronic devices, and then separately make a request to the administration for tablets for the council. What occurs to me is that the use of cell phones has gotten so advanced that they are, in fact, mini tablets, and that you can store in a SIM card in your smartphone virtually every communication that is coming out of our administration for the last 5 years, because you can now get a 32 gigabyte SIM card, and that stores a lot of documents. I think there's a great benefit and there's a great detraction to having electronic devices in the council chambers. One is that we can get the information quickly. Right now, I could be typing up the minutes of my committee and submitting them to Virginia in this thumb drive when we're done. And when I come in next Tuesday night, she could give me my thumb drive back, and I can just plug it back in my tablet, and I can do my minutes again, and I can just unplug the tablet and give it to her, and she doesn't have to type it all up. And I don't have to type it all up. So I think there's an efficiency factor, a big efficiency factor involved. Plus, it'd be nice to have at your fingertips the ordinances, the rules of procedure, the charter, right there at your beck and call without stuffing the little drawers that we have. We all have drawers at our stations that have locks. We don't have any keys for the locks, but we can get keys to fit the locks. So we could get keys for the locks for the doors and actually store your tablet here. And it would be safe, and it wouldn't be stolen from people walking in and out of City Hall. So this opens up a big door, but Council Perica, Council Delicio, the 2 of you supported this as new business. I'm welcoming you to join in if you have any comments. Yes.
Thank you. So this really came about, and I know there's been a lot of discussion over the years about this. I know Councilor President Cooper held up tonight. We introduced it a stack about this big of paper. There's a cost savings that's going to be included with that as well. But on our orientation, I think it was January 6th, Jim Jones said, look, non-cellular devices are fine. It's the way of the future. I think the important thing to note is that cell phones will still interfere with the broadcast. So I think that's why the language has to be specific to non-cellular. I think it's, as you said, there's a convenience factor to it. There's an efficiency factor. I think it would be able to help us, whether it's pull up the capital improvements, Robert's Rules of Order, whatever it might be. So I'm in support, especially of, if the ask of the tablets came about from research Council Perica did, where similar communities have the same, and therefore the council use, and yeah, they hear. I don't know about the desk. I mean, people like to steal things from these desks, whether it's Sour Patch Kids or a gavel, so it happens. But I think it's something that we need to explore. So thank you for addressing it.
Council Perica?
I believe that President Cooper actually had his hand up prior to myself, if you would like to address.
President Cooper?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward, Councilor Conti. I think before we voted out of the committee, I'm in full favor of moving it before the full rules through before the deadline of, I think it was August, if I remember right, or September. But I think we should have Bill Lennox tell us, does he have any recommendations for tablets that should be used? Is there a way to connect through Wi-Fi so that we can get, or store the documents on our tablets so that we can get the 3 documents that we look at most frequently, and then store the meeting agendas and minutes and dockets and everything else that's in this pile for the recycle bin. And then also just circle back with Jim Jones to see, for 2 reasons. One is to see if there's any generosity on the Comcast side to provide something that they would prefer us to use in the council chamber so it didn't interfere with their broadcast. I think we'd be open to any of that, but I think it's important to hear from both of them. And I also think that it's not, there are, it will take me some time to go back to in our daily lives we carry, technical devices that we use, but we've all sort of learned a way to manage the paper. And so, I don't want it, I don't think it should be, anybody should feel like they have to do it. If a few wanted to try it because they wanted to try it, I think we should be open to sort of any of those ideas. That concludes my comment.
On that point, Mr. President, I saw this as kind of like a hybrid indoctrination. That, you've got a lot of paper surrounding your desk.
Well, this is what I'm saving.
And you're constantly writing notes.
I am.
And you may choose to keep the pile of paper, but instead of writing notes, put it into a laptop.
I would love to just be writing it on my tablet, which is what I do during the day.
Right. Councilor Kobus, I think you had your hand up.
Please.
Sure. I am all in favor of this. Getting used to using all of this paper has been difficult, to say the least. But one of the things I would encourage is if we could split this motion into the 2 parts like you were suggesting. I believe we could move relatively quickly on just allowing electronic devices and then explore tablets later. I would suggest doing that.
Councilor Prickett, then Councilor Jackson.
Thank you. So I would recommend the same as your committee members, that I would definitely make the recommendation to split that. This is also part of the reason why we, when Mr. Delisio and I had a conversation about sponsoring this, and during our orientation, when we spoke with Jim Jones, this is a great way to streamline not only all of our business, but it protects us as, servants of the city for public record requests, so that we could do all of our council like this. Because I have an iPad that I use at home. I have a laptop, but this way, all of my council business would be structured on this one particular tablet. If there's a public, so then there's no confusion between Heather jumping from Councilor Parika emails to her Parika Family 5 emails and things like that. And I think it would be exceptionally helpful. I know that I was here one afternoon, and I believe Virginia referenced that she had already gone, it was about 12:30 in the afternoon, she'd already gone through 2 reams of paper. And most of it hits the recycle bin. After we're done with it with one night, most of it goes away. So that was part of the reason for this. So I would happily make a motion to split that if you would like to do that. If you would like to make the motion, I will happily second.
What I'd like to do is I'd like the committee to approve the motion as made and seconded, so that it can then evolve to the council. And in the council, split the vote and take care of other issues surrounding this. But because between now and next Tuesday, I will have extensive conversations with both Bill Lennox and with Jim Jones, and we will have further information. But I just feel that this is one thing that the community can do quickly to make a big change in how we do our business.
Can I follow up just briefly? And utilizing our phones, like the biggest concern during orientation when we were talking about Jim Jones, not only is the interference with the microphones and things like that, but there is, again, that public records request where we would have to have it on airplane mode or whatever, so that we're not receiving calls, we're not getting text messages from constituents during the meeting saying, hey, say this, or me having a conversation with Ms. Dolan across the way. Those are where some of the hesitations about bringing forward, electronics to the council has been. And so I think that, again, if we're all on the same page, utilizing the same equipment, I think that would be really super helpful. So however you would like to proceed, Councilor Conti, I'll be in support of that.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you. Excuse me. So the motion reads, you want to send it up to the administration to, is that correct?
Let me repeat the motion.
Thank you.
To allow council members the use of non-cellular devices such as tablets. And secondly, because this will be split into a second motion, in addition, to request the administration to investigate the possibility of supplying council members with tablets to be used at meetings to provide members with electronic copies of agendas, committee minutes, motions, and etc., and decrease the use of paper in the council office.
Okay. So first of all, we need to make sure that we're all in agreement that we want to use these.
Correct.
And I get that.
That's number one.
But also number one is we got to have the administration find funding for us to obtain these, which is going to be quite a bit of money. So before, I think my suggestion is before you have Bill Lennox come down, Jim Jones, because I'm sure the mayor will sit and want to chat with them as well about this, that could take place with the administration and then have them come down rather than have them speak twice. I think that's a good suggestion. So I do agree with President Cooper when he was saying that. I think it's good to hear from them to see how this council and in this building, how it would all work and what he would recommend us using. But the administration, number one, has to find us the money to purchase them.
I guess I misinterpreted. Mr. President, did you want me to request Mr. Jones and Mr. Lennox to appear in front of my committee in 2 weeks?
No, I think that's reasonable to have them come in, or you to have that discussion. But I think that, you could bring only one, you could withdraw the second and only bring one of these out in 2 weeks after you have those discussions to give some more information to the council. Then they would be both split out, and the funding issue would be a separate issue when you bring them out separately. And then the other use, which is a new piece of the rules, as you say, could be added to the rules of procedure, and it's appropriate numbered and all that.
Is that okay with you, Councilor Jackson, if I have the conversation and we summarize that, or do you want to have
No, that's perfectly fine. It's
Mr.
just
Jones?
a suggestion.
Okay. I just didn't want to misunderstand what you were saying. Is there any further comments on law? Oh, yes.
So I just want to make a statement, and you'll remember this too, President Cooper, and I think Councilor Blair will remember this as well, and even you, my Councilor Delicio, is that back in 2010, when we all first came on here, you brought this up. Way back in 2010, this was an issue. Let's use them. Why can't we use them? I think we should be able to use them, and it never went anywhere. So I would like nothing better than to see in 2018, 8 years later, that it somehow we finally make it happen. I mean, it's way overdue, and we should be, even though it might be uncomfortable at first, I think it's way overdue, and it's something we should be doing. We're wasting so much paper. It's just ridiculous.
If I can expound on your comments, when I first joined the council, I was assigned the chairman of a technology improvement committee for the municipal council. And the issue that we were dealing with, or I wanted to deal with, was this is like ancient technology. And we're talking 8 years ago. I wanted to be able to have a system where people's cell phones and commuters would be able to access city information that was about their neighborhood, so that they could go to the city website, they could enter a search engine, and they could see whether or not there was anything in the planning board, the zoning board, the municipal council, or any other committee, commission that was addressing anything that had their street name in it, which was a rather simple thing to do, I thought. But that was apparently too much transparency and too much sunlight. I further thought that it would benefit the city council if we had a way in which we could present graphics and movies and videos. Like, for example, in the month of March, my committee is going to go visit 9 departments. Boy, it'd be nice to take some pictures and show you some videos if you're not able to make it, and show the public as well on television in high definition of what it is that we're looking at. And so we have this that might be able to do that. And seeing how the Technology Improvement Committee was going to have absolutely no success, I called for its adjournment and it was dissolved. And that was the end of that discussion. But I do think it's time now to bring it back, and I'm glad that Councilor Delicio and Parika brought it back to life, and I think you had something additional you wanted to say?
I'm good.
Okay. Councilor Hovis.
One final thing, I do support moving this forward to the full council and splitting it there. I'm comfortable with that. I do want to see it split there, and one of the main reasons is I think the second half of this, with the analysis of the tablets and finding the funding and figuring out which ones to purchase, could take a significant amount of time. In the meantime, if we're allowed to use our personal devices and experiment, I think we can work out some of the kinks ahead of time, so that when and if we do move forward with the tablets, we'll have some further information. So I do think it's important that we...
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had that in the back of my mind, and it hadn't come back, is that I'm ready to go. I've got an extra Surface that I can bring in here, lock up in my desk, and leave here, and be happy to use that. And I'm not going to ask the city to buy me a tablet, because I have one that I'm very comfortable using, and I would like to use the one that I have. So there's that issue too. Can I donate my own tablet for my use during the term that I'm the council? And when I go off the council, I take it with me. Not everybody's in that position, and maybe that's an unfair advantage, so maybe that should not be allowed. I really don't know. I haven't thought this all out, and I'd like to hear what you have to say.
So I'm not, I'm in support either way, our own or city-owned ones. You know, in my discussions with the city solicitor, I'm actually going to have Bill Lennox set up my M. Cooper at the City of Attleboro, because I'm not going to use my own personal email anymore, because I'm not going to subject my house to, or my email, my personal email, to a request, a Freedom of Information Act request or a Public Records request, because I'm getting all these city solicitor and other matters forwarded to me as council president. So I think that using, you know, I'm not, and if I had permission, I would either go buy another one if I didn't like one of the ones I have at home to use, or you know, use Jeremiah's. He wouldn't be happy with me, but I would, you know, I'll find something to use if I choose to do that. So I'm not opposed to putting it out there, but I do think we have to have some insight from Jim Jones and from Bill Lennox. In the absence of that, I won't support it. I won't vote in favor of not having that. We've got to have some insight from them. There was some reservation. There's some specific settings that Jim wanted us to have. And I remember that way back when, and the town of Mansfield, I remember you clipped the article out of the paper, and right at the time of the thing, and they had implemented it. And I know there'll be chatter from us typing and that kind of thing, but I don't know that we haven't tried it, and so I don't know if it'll be any more disruptive than us shuffling papers and clicking our pens. So only time will tell, and Jim will let us know pretty quick.
Let me get Councilor Delicio and then Councilor Hovis.
Thank you. I look at it this way, a couple things. One, we've waited this long. We've been a city for 104 years. We haven't had a computer. So I think, to President Cooper's point, I'd feel better if we had the opportunity to have Bill and Jim in front of the committee, find out what we can and can't do, as opposed to just firing blind into the night. Secondly, as far as the funding, it wasn't asking the city for a piece of technology. I think we all have the technology. It was more or less to President Cooper's point about, you know, how are we protecting ourselves, how are we protecting city information, and you never know, there could be grant money available for these sort of things as well. So I think that we have to be creative and willing to search everywhere that we go. I don't know there's a need to necessarily rush it at this point, so I think in 2 weeks, maybe we do have these two individuals come down and we can flush out any questions or concerns.
I agree with you. I just wanted to shoot something.
So based on that discussion, would you like for me to withdraw my second?
No.
Or are you going to get the information between now and?
Yep. I want to keep this going forward, so I would like for this to call for a vote following all this discussion, and I would like for it to sit in my committee, and I will make these calls this week, and I will line them up to come to see me in 2 weeks, to see us in our committee meeting in 2 weeks to make a presentation on what they think we should do and what protections should be put in place and what their recommendations are.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. So if you vote it from your committee, you can no longer discuss it at the committee level. It's before the council. So if you vote the matter out of your committee tonight, you cannot discuss it at your committee again because it's then before the council. So you would have to bring those individuals before the council to have that discussion, and I'm not in favor of that. So
what do you think about, should this be a council discussion or a committee discussion?
it should be a committee discussion before the councilors that want to hear it.
So in that regard, are you willing to withdraw your second?
I am.
Thank you. It's been a great discussion.
It has. Thank
Second's
you,
withdrawn. And I withdraw the motion. But thank you for the copious notes. I would like to just touch on one other issue that you brought up, President Cooper, that you have discovered in your short term as president that it's in your best interest to have a City of Attleboro email. Is that true of the rest of the council?
That is.
And should that be part of the procedures and the rules of the council?
So any of us that were here last term probably have one. We just never set it up. The new councilors can make the request to have that set up, and then Bill will help us put it on our phones so it can be separately, you can get it on your personal phone, but it's a city email address. And so the answer is yes.
So we'll have to take that up in a future meeting and make that a part of our rules and procedures. Has anyone else had any thoughts about what the committee should be addressing in rules and procedures for the council that we should be taking up while we have this joyous moment of kumbaya discussion? Yes, Councilor.
I personally don't think they're too bad. Now you could spend 7 hours reading them, is beyond me.
Yeah, it's taking that long. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. I declare the council committee on council rules and procedures adjourned at 8:55. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have that.